Hello, this is Sophie. I'll start. Yes? Okay. So, hello, this is Sophie. I'm calling from Vancouver, originally from France. And the way I'm feeling right now is excited.
So this is Hilary. I'm based in London. Sadly, didn't get to your event, Lily. So I'm looking. So I'm curious would be my one word today.
Hi, this is Eva from Rio, Brazil. More than curious, I'm thirsty for information.
This is Mary Jo from Michigan. And I guess I'll just echo those thoughts. Curious and excited to hear about the conference.
This is Terry Hildebrand from Denver, Colorado, and I'm enthusiastic.
Hi.
This is Lori Hillis from Calgary, from Victoria, Freudian slip. I'm just moving. I attended the conference and still basking in the glow.
I am Patricia, originally from Guatemala, but I live in Los Angeles, California, and I am in gratitude. Thank you.
Dominique, I am from Montreal, and I feel connected since the conference. Very connected, very happy to be with all of you. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, this is Suk. I'm in Delhi, India, and I'm looking forward to listening, from all of you.
Marilyn O'Hearn in Kansas City in the US, and community, thankful to be a part of the community and curious and excited to hear what I missed.
Hello, I'm Mary Crowley. I'm from the Comox Valley, Vancouver Island. I am excited to be here. I'm crashing your party today.
You are part of the community. And so just for those that just signed in, we're giving our name, our location, and one word that describes our feeling right now. Who wants to go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Anya Avdienko Vidov, and I was born and raised in Russia, but I live in US for the last 8 years. I do locate in San Jose, California. I woke up very early today, so I'm very energized and happy to bring this energy.
I'm John Hoover, calling in from Portland, Oregon, and I am grateful and full of anticipation.
Also, John, I'm Sherry Boone, also calling from Portland, Oregon, and I am happy to be here.
Larissa from Calgary, Canada. I attended the conference. It was a highlight of the spring for sure. And the word that I am sitting with is connected. I'm looking forward to our time together today. Thanks.
Michael Cullen in Montreal. I was in Riyadh when you guys were doing your conference, so it's wonderful to be back here, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Hi, I'm Tina from Spokane, Washington, and I was at the conference, and I'm grateful for new connections.
And I'm Lillian Abrams, and I'm in northern New Jersey, and I am present and engaged.
Hi, I'm Eliane from Mexico City, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you.
Hi, I'm Ingela from Mexico, and the word is passion, about the opportunity to share some of the experience in the conference.
Okay, It looks like, Clinier, we're looking for your name, where you're calling in from, and one word to describe your feeling or your thoughts today.
Hi, I am Clenir. I am from Brazil. I'm very happy to be here to share about supervision and the great experience in Victoria. Thank you.
Thanks. Is everyone gone? It's quite the global community. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are we missing anyone? Rodrigo and Julie are they there? Are they here? Okay.
Not yet.
Well, they'll show up maybe. Okay, so let's get started. We have Anya on deck. She's going to talk a little bit about Peter Hawkins' seven-eyed model for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we can talk about 7-eyed model more than 5 minutes. I'm going to share some highlights, 4 main key learnings for me that I keep exploring and applying to my supervision practice, and I found it very helpful. So first, bring a wider context, wider system. Bring not just the client to the room, but the whole system, all stakeholders, with the coaching engagement and beyond. I found very helpful question that Peter demonstrated, such as, what is the result expected by your stakeholders, that you can ask from the very beginning of the session. If the future customers going to be here, what will they say? I thought it was quite interesting, not just to start the supervision session with the whole system, but to finish the supervision session with the whole system. And during the supervision session, always link to the bigger vision, to a wider system. Second, transform limited beliefs. Peter demonstrated a very handy technique. When the supervisee realizes that the contract transfer is taking place, you can ask, tell me 3 different ways in which this client is not similar to your father, is not, or it is different from your father, or the client has a contract transference towards. And I think it was just very fast way to help client to dissociate from this contract transference and help him to be more resourceful. Third, trust in the nonverbal story. What your client is not expressing verbally, very often we can see in the body language, and it can guide us to a deeper work that needed to be done in the supervision right now. Peter used a lot of mirroring techniques, and it was always very insightful for the clients during the demos. And also he recommended to listen to the client through your own body. It can provide a very rich material for exploring the parallel processes. What's happening now in your body might happen in similar situation with the client or the supervisee. And finally, I think it was very impressive just to observe Peter move very fluidly from one mode into another. And for example, the way he moves from model 5 through model 6. And it was also a key learning for me that in order to access mode 6, you need to start with mode 5 to share what's going on with you. Again, bring a wide system, a wider system to the room. Transform limited beliefs during the supervision session. Trust a nonverbal story. And be fluid, shifting from one mode into another mode. Those were my key learnings, and thank you so much for listening. And I saw some of you took some notes. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Anya.
Yeah. I want to add one thing to what you were saying, Anya, at the beginning when you were talking about the who is the agenda. And I think that's something that Peter shared that I hear for first time. They are like more clear than other times. Is that it's not only what the supervisee wants, but he was asking what the other stakeholder need from you. That's a different question. It's not only what the supervisee wants from the supervisor, but what all of the stakeholders, all of the client, the organizations, other people in the system may need from the coach to have that conversation during supervision. So I want to just bring this as a good point for transition to the next person.
Yeah, that's a great point, Damien. All right, so thank you for that, Anya. And we're going to get into little groups, and you can talk about what you've heard and process how it shows up in your supervision. Next up we have, let's see, Ingela talking about resourcing. Again, a Peter Hawkins event. Ingela, are you there? Where are you? There
Yes,
you
I
are.
am.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, you know, resourcing actually, it's a difficult thing to explain because it, after the conversation, it ranges from a very large thing of topics that we cover in only, you know, kind of 45 minutes. But I'm going to try to do my best. And at most, I'd like to give you the experience of the importance of this. So actually, the title of his conference in this part was interesting, but because it was researching the neglected leg of supervision. So it seems to be something that we tend to forget, and probably it's got to do because it's a difficult thing to do. And what he says is that researching has got to do with how we are changing the process that we work on leadership. So we're coming from EQ to EQ, and then to RQ, which would be the resourcing intelligence. And he makes this parallel on what resourcing could be. So he first told us about the word. And he says, you know that there's scientific proof that we are wasting or spending twice the resources that the earth can produce in a year. So first, there's an awareness on a global concept on the resources. And then he said, we are in a very difficult world, a fragmented world. Peter is very compromised into working now with all the problem on migration in Europe. And he's very conscious, and he's saying, we need to increase our capacity, which is, again, we need to increase our resources. The problem is that we think that we need to work harder. And if we do that, we're gonna, we're gonna get very, very, very tired. So the question, and this is what it came from, is how do we get more capacity, more resourcing without working harder? And there's a catch, and there's a challenge. Because typically, what we say is that we are striving to have a good work and life balance, right? We've heard that so many times. The thing is, he challenges this, because if we have a work-life balance, then all the time that we are working, we're not living. So just imagine how much time of the day we spend not living. He says, we need to find a way that our work is our living. Otherwise, this is why we get so exhausted, so drained. And then he proposes this beautiful exercise. I don't think we will have the time to do it, but I'm going to explain it to you, because I would love that anyone has a chance to do this with someone you care or you trust. And then the exercise is as follows. He says, how do you feel? It's like a three-step exercise. How do you feel when you work from effort? How do you feel when you're going through the source? And what kind of things resource you? So this was a very short exercise. And you had like 1 or 2 minutes, and you cannot stop talking. And then you could see, and at least my experience is that when you start to describe how do you work from effort, you can even see how your breathing changes, you become more tense. And then it's a relief when you say, well, time's off. Then you go and work through the source. And then you think about the good things that you do when you like your clients, when you get to with a new client. And there are so many opportunities. And then you start feeling the source, right? And I think everybody in the room got this experience on, what I do really, really, really energized me. So what I gotta be conscious and aware that this is a resource for me. So that's a way that working, you're getting the good things out of you, and you're getting this energy, and then you're getting this extra capacity. So after a long day of conversations, you don't feel like, oh my God, I have all this conversation, but all the way around. Like, oh my God, I have all these conversations that were so good. I mean, I cannot pick which one was better. He also shared a beautiful example, like for a long period of time when he was going to the meeting in the subway, he looked at people and everybody seems like an obstacle to get to the next meeting, right? So he was like tense. And when he arrived to the meeting, he tried to breathe a little and then, make his best. And then one day he thought, what if I see all these people different? Why if, the vision towards them is more like about being connected, just as many of you said on your presentation. Then he said, the people, you will see your sister sitting next to you, or you will see your brother, or you will see your mom, or you will see someone you care. So instead of feeling obstacles that you cannot see because they are taking your place, you are sharing the seat to someone you care, because that will be someone else's sister or someone else's mother. So by turning this loving look, you start resourcing yourself, even on your way to work, even if in a difficult situation. So to me, this was very, very, very powerful. He said that also one challenge that we have as supervisors and coaches, of course, but later supervisors, is that actually we are better supervisors if we can avoid this. And there is a big trap. And listen to this, because we've trained to this. To me, this is very interesting. The big trap is empathy, because we start feeling what the other feels, and we forget to make this distance that, okay, we feel the empathy, we come back to ourselves, we feel empathy. But if you stay there all the time, you start thinking on the other just as an individual. And then you forget to see, and I'm going to take what Anya said very importantly, the wider system. So probably if you start thinking about the wider system, the empathy is not only on the people that is having, whatever struggle or difficulty, and they want to work it with you in coaching, but you start connecting to all the other pieces. And in order to connect the other pieces, you need to be empathetic with the wider system. Because in the very end, the important thing is that, in the end, the very, very important thing is that the answer is not in you, is not in your coach, is not in the supervisors, is in the wider system you create with the other. So that's my takeaway.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ingela. I did like his piece on wide-angled empathy, right? Trying to be empathetic to even those that we would not normally be empathetic with. And that challenges me. So thank you for that. All right.
What I want to let people know too is that Peter did a session for us for this network last year, and there is a recording of that. So we're working on our website, and when our website is ready, we're going to have the link to that presentation that Peter did that was at Ingela cover as a session for us. So that's a resource for everybody to be aware of.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Damon. All right, so we have up, let's see, we've got Julie and then John Hoover up on deck. Are you up for it, John?
Sure.
All right, so let's get Julie on and then you next, and then we're going to go into our small groups.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late. Can you hear me?
You're kind of dark, Julie.
We can hear you, but we
The
cannot
light is
see
in the back.
you because you have your light in the back. Okay.
Is that better?
That's better. Thanks. Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of what Peter Jackson spoke about, and I took a lot away from his presentation. And he's from Oxford Brookes University, and he started us off showing us a picture of his team that he works with at the International Centre for Coaching and Mentoring Studies. And they're doing a lot of research, and the question that resonated for me, the one that he posed, was how do we know that coaching works, and how much research, some research has been done, but a lot more needs to be done for us to be able to actually answer these questions. And there's a lot of there's a lit search that he did that he said was out. There's a lot of research, but his whole presentation was, how do we know it works? So he mentioned a few people that you might want to look up. Rob Reiner on Twitter, Rob_Reiner, R-E-I-N-E-R, who's on Twitter, and he writes about evidence-based coaching. And if you go onto the Oxford Brookes site, there's a lot of papers there on what they're actually researching. So he started off with a series of questions. And one was, what do I think I know about supervision? It's a reflective space. It's how I show up in my practice. Another question he posed was, what would tell me that I'm doing a good or great job in supervision? And what's a personal commitment to one's good practice? What all this was about was what we learned in supervision when we were all training is about the use of the internal coach. And his whole body of work and the people that he works with is about moving supervision forward. So I just want to, frame this with, this is my perspective of what I took away, and I didn't capture everything, but it was quite thought-provoking for me, and I hope it is for you. What he said was that coach training that we're doing these days is based on competencies, and is it the right framework? He mentioned it's just the baseline for coaches. We know that coaches are lifelong learners. I'm sure everybody in this room is a lifelong learner. But what he posed was a little bit different. He talked about the competency-based accreditation and training programs that are in existence today. But for coaches, that's just a low-level functioning is what he phrased it at. And the greatness for a coach comes from the person. And this is where he introduced a new term for me, and one I'd never heard of before, phronesis, P-H-R-O-N-E-S-I-S. And it's an ancient Greek word for wisdom or intelligence, and having a phronetic way forward. So the intention is to look at the education and training of coaches from a competency-based accreditation and training program perspective. And the intention for coach education that focuses on developing the coach as an instrument of practice and developing ethical maturity. So the term ethical maturity was something I took away, and there were other factors in there as well, but using self as an instrument of practice and developing my own ethical maturity were the two factors that I took away as far as deepening myself as a supervisor and a coach. And also the question that he posed around the way that we're training coaches today. How do we know that it actually is the right way or the only way? We don't have enough evidence to be able to prove how coaching is effective. We know that it's doing good, but that's what they're working on, I guess. And it just got me really curious, and I started researching this and wanting to up my own game and look more into the evidence-based research around this. So I'm sure there's a lot more in there, but that's what I took away about being myself is the most reliable tool that I have. Jenny Rogers, another coach that I love her work. She always says that if you learn the basics well, you can put it to the side and carry on coaching. So I think the training that we do as coaches is about understanding the framework and the processes, but that's just the beginning of the journey. And I think that's why supervision right now is having an impact. And to hear somebody like Peter Jackson talk about the research that they're doing was quite inspiring. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's what I took away, and I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Julie. So that's Oxford Brookes. It's a university in Oxford. So, okay, John, you've got 5 minutes, and then we're going to go into breakout groups. You're on mute.
There we go. You can hear me now, I hope. So welcome, everyone, and thank you, Lily. Sam McGill, quite a subject all in himself. I'm sure everyone here can add 2 takeaways. I find that Sam, and I consider him a good friend, is a person who's not necessarily content-rich in what he presents, even though in truth he is, but I find him to be more of an experience. Rather than listening to Sam, you kind of experience Sam, because he is such a unique individual and brings such unique perspectives. And he was talking about the good enough supervisor in his short presentation. And he is always, let me turn that off. He is always presenting things, or not always, but in this case and in many cases, through French culture, because that's so near and dear to his heart. And he did in this presentation talk about his region of that country where he and his wife stay in La Provence. But overall, the takeaway I had from Sam and the stories he told about the people, in the farmer in particular in La Provence, and his experience of supervising, much like his experience in coaching, is incredible presence, and the fact that we don't need to be harsh and judgmental about crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and making sure that we bring our clients, the coaches, through every single lens of the 7-eyed model every time, but that to simply be good enough for them, meaning being with them at any given time. So that coaching supervision will look different almost every time you encounter it, based on his philosophy, and that being good enough is good enough. Western standards generally point out that or suggest that being good enough is not good enough. We must always strive to be better, to be best, to really, really excel. And what I took away from Sam's presentation mostly was a permission, just like in Peter Hawkins gave us permission and kind of an admonition to share our and speak to our unmentionables. Sam gave us permission to simply be with our coaches that we work with as supervisors, and just be what they need us to be, as they need us to be it in real time. So generally it's about presence and following their lead and being where they need us to be in the way they most need us to be there, and that as a supervisor is good enough. So for me, that was the main takeaway. I'm sure other people, probably everyone in the room, had other takeaways from what he said, but that was the main thing that I felt relaxed about after encountering Sam and experiencing him, more than listening to him, was a relaxed place to have permission to simply be what clients need when they need us to be it. So I'll stop there and see if anybody wants to add anything to that or ask anything about that before we move on.
Yeah, thanks, John. We're not going to actually entertain questions at this time. We'd really like to get into our groups and have people engage in a fuller discussion in smaller groups. So, Damien, Anything to add before we?
No, I just be sure that in each group we are going to have 4 rooms to be sure that in 5 rooms, that in each room we have people who were in the conference and people who are not in the conference. So our goal with Lily here is to have a conversation and a dialogue. What we would like to do is to create a community where people can connect and learn and get to meet other coaching supervisors from the Americans. And we have here also guests from Europe and from Asia. Everybody's welcome in our network. But I think what is important is that we get to know people. So we hear not only who they are, where they're coming from, what the work that they are doing, but in this case, what they learned during the conference. And the people who are not there can ask questions or also share their experiences. So Lily, do you want to do this for 15 minutes?
Yeah, let's do 15 and then come back with some quick key learnings.
Yeah, so we're going to ask one person to take some notes so they can report to everybody later what was the conversation about, what happened in the 15 minutes. And maybe you want to use at the beginning, even though everybody introduced each other at the beginning, there were a couple of people who were late, didn't have a chance to introduce each other. So you can spend maybe a couple of minutes at the beginning just again saying your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, and you'll probably have about 3 minutes to report out. So it's going to be tight and bright.
Yeah, because we want to do all of this in 1 hour. So enjoy your conversations.
All right.
So you need to join. You're going to be invited to a group. Please join that group.
Hello, group.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Tina.
Hey.
5 of us.
Hi.
It worked. And how come my video isn't working? Huh.
There you
All right, there you go. Have to turn it off and turn it on. All right, so it looks like Julie, Tina, and I were at the conference. And Marilyn and Clearnear are joining the conversation. So let's start maybe with comments or thoughts about what you heard so far. And I actually don't want to facilitate. I think I need to take myself away from that. Let me rewind. Who would like to facilitate this conversation?
We could share that role.
Mm-hmm.
Julie's making all sorts of faces. What's up, Julie? You're on mute. Not working?
Okay, well, she's not facilitating then.
Okay, I guess you're not facilitating unless you want to try a new method.
Facilitating.
Pick someone to be the lead facilitator, and then everyone will be part of the role. How's that? Who would like it?
I can step in. I'll volunteer to step into that. So,
thank you.
Sure. So I'm Marilyn O'Hearn in Kansas City, in case anyone didn't hear that earlier. And I'm thrilled to be here with you and learn more and be part of this community. And so Lily, I love Lily's suggestion of starting out with what are the takeaways from the conversation so far today?
Well, I just loved being reminded by Ingela about the resourcing oneself and that exercise that we did. That was so awesome. Yeah, and I think, the other thing is just what I talked about, actually, just the research around how do we know coaching works. That for me was like a little, I need to do some work around that and get involved on the research side of it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And who else?
I'm Tina, and I'm in Spokane, Washington, in the northwest part of the U.S. And I thought that what people shared was a really nice summary of some of the highlights of the conference. The seven-eyed model was relatively new to me. I didn't know it in detail, so I got a nice summary of that. I'm also struck by the focus on presence and awareness in what different people had to share. So that's, awareness of the big picture and the importance of presence and being what we need our coach or supervisee to be in the moment.
Thank you. Claire, is that how you pronounce your name? You're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, yes. Hi, I am Clenir. I am from Brazil. Sorry, I am not speaking English very well, but I am very happy to be here in this community. Thank you. How do you pronounce? Lily? Yes? Thank you, Lily, for inviting me to be part here. And I agree, for me, presence is a great picture. And this is about ethical too. And ethical for me is a big picture too. And I am curious to talk more about the ethical and the relationship and the maturity, the presence in this supervision relationship.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Rosie, do you have something you want to share about takeaways so far today?
Well, I actually am curious if anyone went to Janet Harvey's presentation on ethical maturity and whether there were some nuggets there, because I missed that one. I've always been struck by Hawkins' view of, we come to supervision like we go to a petrol station and get a fill up, and we feel good after our supervision sessions. And he challenges us to put solar panels on ourselves, that we're constantly, continually resourcing. I really love that image. I hold it very dear to me. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. I'm making a note of that, putting solar panels on ourselves. Yeah. So I think that the two main things for me, I think really the big one is this idea of from San Miguel about the importance of presence and just being what they need us to be, and that will look different each time. So I'm just completing Damien's training the end of June, and I have someone in particular who has come for supervision, and I think at times he says it could be mentoring, it could be something else, just like bring all of you, because I hesitate sometimes to, like, am I crossing the line? Going back to Claire's idea of ethics, am I crossing a line into mentoring or teaching or something else? And in working with Eva, she's helped me to learn to just say, okay, now I'm taking off the supervision hat, and if you'd like, I can move into mentoring for a few minutes. So this idea of staying fully present, still having a flowing session, being who the client needs you to be at that time, and yet staying true to what supervision is in an ethical sense. And the reminder for source is always great. It's like a daily practice of mine, stepping into that sense that I'm not in this alone, even from a spiritual perspective. So, what's our remaining time here? How else would you like to spend our remaining time, and who would like to report out to the group? We'll have 3 minutes to report out.
I'm not volunteering to report out because I'm really new in this arena, but I do have a question about something you just said, Marilyn, if it's okay to throw this out to the group. So I heard you say sort of that you have some distinctions around ethics in terms of where the lines are drawn between like supervision and mentoring and teaching. And I hadn't considered those lines, but more the lines between maybe supervision and therapy or consulting. And so that's a sort of a different way of looking at the ethical boundaries for me. And I wondered what other folks might think about those boundaries or how they see them.
Yeah, I think, you know, being aware of the boundaries is essential in supervision. And going through group supervision, I've learned so much around how I can learn and grow myself just by observing and listening to different perspectives. So what I'm trying to figure out is how do I bring that type of modeling of that way of being in group into my individual practice with clients? Because you do flip-flop, like, you know, there are times where there's mentoring that's clearly needed. Not so much of the therapy in my world, but definitely the mentoring. Yeah.
Who else would like to speak to this? I have more experience mentoring. So I've been mentoring for 15 years, and supervision is newer for me. And so I find it easier now in my mentoring to say, you know, if I were supervising you, here's what we might look at next. And in supervision, I'm still kind of getting the hang of the whole thing. And so then to have on top of that, making sure I have the clear boundary can sometimes be a challenge.
It's just something coming up for me as you're talking. 15 years of mentoring experience. Wow, that's deep. And, you know, now to have the supervision, that's amazing, right? To bring that to a client. So for me, I am a certified mentor. I've done some mentoring, but I just feel that the space in supervision is more comfortable for me, even though I'm not deep in it. And I just think it's wonderful, you know, that we're all kind of bringing all of this into the space, right? And it goes back to the theme of the day. It's who we are, right? When we supervise. Who are we when we supervise?
Thanks for those additions. And it strikes me that there may be a role for teaching and supervision in terms of the mentoring pieces around nuts and bolts of competencies and code of ethics, at least in ICF speak. And that coaching supervision, for me, feels like it's more care of the whole person and the whole system. So that's a new way of looking at it for me from this conversation. Thanks.
And for me too, about the delicate ethical issues, not so about standards, but about issues that I can to see only about one part, but my intuition, what is new here and is not clear in standards, in ethical standards. I think in supervision, this is my lens is a delicate ethical issues, culture issues or relationship issues that I can only see differently, but I not can use a specific standard about that.
Thank you. Thank you. And we are closing out in a few seconds. Who would like to present?
That's back. Okay, great. Sorry if it interrupted you in the middle. This is the way this works. Okay, so who would like to share some of your thoughts?
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
I got voluntold myself. Actually, we ended up with it was an interesting conversation in the 3 minutes. So the first bit was that live demos, the live demo that Peter did was very fluid and it allowed you to really experience it. So demos are a really important part of how we experience supervision rather than just academic. We had the discussion about whether, was it 6 before 5 or 5 before 6? But actually, as Damien pointed out, I think it's what the real point is try them together. Don't just look at 6. If you look at 6, always look at 5 and vice versa, whichever way you do it. We had a conversation about there's never either or, it's always multiples. So when people say it's either this or that, go with saying, and what else? So really looking to move them to possibility and positives. And the final one where we got into quite an interesting conversation was the concept if the shift doesn't happen in the room, it's never going to happen anyway. So we did have a discussion about, is that true? Is it supervision and it's coaching? But the concept of, and we discussed it could be contextual and whatever the role is, but try to play it out in the room to give people the visceral behavioral change before they leave the room, as it were. But we were still having a discussion whether we all totally agreed or not with that. Great conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Hilary. Well, who would like to go next? Okay, Ingela, go ahead.
Okay. So actually, we had a very good mix in our team from people that attended and people that is training to be supervisor. And I think that the most important thing is that we have now new recruits for next year that are so curious about it. We talked about that they are really feeling their, interest for attending next one because it opened their curiosity on learning new things, on knowing about who this Peter Hawkins is that they heard so much. And then we go into the details of beautiful things about supervision. Of course, one that I would like to mention up front is bringing the system into the room, which is, we talk about a wider system, but bringing the system into the room is so physical that you're actually seeing the people you're including into it, metaphorically. And then we went to a more kind of more in the San Miguel conference on how important is the presence and just to be with someone, in a certain way, not just any way. And then Sherry was saying something like, who you are is how you supervise, right? So the supervision that each one can do is going to be totally different. It's going to be very unique. It's going to have your feeling, your touch, and overall your presence. No one can take it from you. It's about holding the space. And then we ended with the idea that being yourself in the supervision session is your resourcing capability.
Thank you, Ingela. So we have a couple of more groups. Who else would like to share from the other groups? Do we have a person assigned for each group?
We didn't assign. Does anyone else want to share, or shall I share? Okay, I'm getting a heads up from Julie. So we also talked about San Miguel's being fully present and going wherever the client needs you to go. And how does that tie into ethical boundaries of supervision? And so there are times that clients bring other issues. They may be, you feel like you'd like to move into consulting or coaching or mentoring or teaching. And then what do you do about that? And so how do you stay true to being fully present and what the client needs, and also retain the ethical boundaries at the same time? And also the sourcing. We talked about sourcing, but that was a key issue. And then I think another takeaway was supervision as the care of the whole person and system. So we had people at different levels just starting and learning, and people more experienced at the conference, not the conference. And I've been learning from Eva about the using the coaching tool of, would you like for me to take off my hat and step into mentoring role for a minute, or consulting, or something else, so that you can be there for them and still stay within the ethical boundaries. It doesn't feel smooth yet for me, but I'm getting there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn, for sharing that. And from the other group, who would like to share? Anybody?
I'll share from my group. I think John here is pressuring me a little bit. Does anybody want to share? I guess I'll go. So we had a conversation about going into the details of Ingela's sharing of the resourcing exercise with Peter Hawking, and truly understanding how, and I loved Hillary's insights and sharing on this, that if the shift does not happen in the room, it's not going to happen. And it also reminds me of Peter Drake in the narrative coaching. He talks a lot about this, and how the resourcing exercise truly, when you let yourself feel the difference between working from effort or letting source work through you, it really creates a very different embodiment. So how this embodiment truly helps you find keys to resource at every second. It's like letting yourself get grounded, and you can ground yourself at any moment. So with this idea is this shift of going from the IQ to the emotional IQ to the WeQ, and how this is happening right here as a community, becoming a group and letting the whole wider system be here. So how is the I inside the we? And letting ourselves be there with our imperfections, our mistakes, this presence of truly being there with everything we are, our whole mess and our whole greatness, because both of them work together. And at the same time, having the wider system and working and doing the supervision for the wider system. And hear what Ingela said of truly bringing the system into the room was very important, because when we're supervising, it's amazing when we don't bring only the insights of what the coach is having of his client, but we truly bring the client with what he said, what exactly happened. It all starts coming together. And I don't know if I'm missing some other things. Anya had very insightful points here, but I think we're all kind of connecting into the same essence of how our presence is key of, in the supervision, letting our body do a lot of the work, because we're going to, and this brings this the I6 of what present, if I withhold what I'm feeling, what present I'm withholding for the coach I'm supervising.
Yes. And we also, thank you very much. I kind of nominated Eliani in the chat room, but I wanted to add that we explored even deeper into San Miguel, and of course his story that I did not invoke, about the cracked pot and its imperfection, and that in its imperfection it caused a great deal of beauty as it watered and nurtured flowers along the route of delivering water to the master's house. And Ava pointed out that there's actually a song about that story that she has used in delivering workshops and things. So Ava is a great resource in wanting to pass that story forward about imperfection and being who we truly are and being truly present as we are in music. So I found that as a great learning just now.
Thank you, John. We need to wrap up because we're getting to the top of the hour. And I want to thank Michael, who has shared a lot of resources with all of the things that we are having covered. So Michael, you're having really great to share all of these links. So thank you. And so we can follow up on that. There is one more group that didn't report yet, so we need to do that before we finish. What's a group that didn't report yet?
That was our group, and we were talking. I wasn't at the conference, but the effectiveness of the putting it into practice right away. So the experiential learning that went there, and the new awareness of the potential of supervision, and its broader implications for not just growing our clients, but growing ourselves as coaches and systems as a whole. Because I wasn't there, and because I was listening to Peter Hawkins earlier today, what came up for me was the sense of a philosophical approach and a kind of a moral authority that kind of started. I was concerned about that creeping in if we were starting to bring that part of the session into that realm, just to be mindful of it in terms of just for the purpose of creating awareness for the coach, as opposed to imparting a philosophy. And I don't know what your takeaway was that on that part of the workshop.
So, Mark, this is a good discussion for the future. It's about the agenda. I think that Peter Hawkins brings a controversial perspective where he said the supervisee may bring an agenda, but it may be another agenda that we may be paying attention to, that is what the world needs from us, not only what the supervisee needs from us as a supervisor. But I think that's a great discussion for another session. But we need to wrap up today. And Lily, you have some announcements before we go. I really appreciate everybody participating and sharing your learnings and being open to collaborate and to have dialogue with your colleagues. So Lily, do you want to wrap up the session with some announcements?
Yeah, sure. That was a great discussion. It was good to actually get into small groups and meet people and have a conversation. So next session, June 4th, back to the 8 a.m. slot. This is me doing a magic box session. The room will be locked and that session will not be recorded, just to let you know. And then July 9th at 8 a.m., Lori Hillis, she's on this call. She'll be doing a piece on shame and vulnerability. And our conference dates have shifted to June 13th, 14th, 2019 in Montreal. So we're working on that. All right, so have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you on our next call. Thanks for participating.
And we're working on a website, and when the website is ready, you will get all of the resources from the conference. Okay? So that is coming.
Yes, please be patient with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for doing this, Damien and Lily. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Great community.